You won't get a single cent. That's exactly what my mother told me while pressing her perfectly manicured hand on top of her will, staring directly into my eyes with a coldness only a parent can deliver. And in that moment, in that breath, in that frozen second of silence, something inside me didn't break. It woke up. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. My name is Emily Carter, and the night my mother cut me out of her life was the night I quietly decided to cut myself out of hers too. The dining room smelled like rosemary chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and the fake warmth my mother always tried to create when she needed to play family. Jason, my brother, sat across from me, tapping his foot, pretending not to smile. He knew. He absolutely knew. This wasn't a family dinner. This was a performance, and I was the only one who didn't know the script. The envelope slid across the table toward me like a slow-moving threat. "Emily," my mother said, "open it." Inside was her will. Not a draft. Not a discussion. A final decision. Everything belonged to Jason. Everything. Dad's house? Jason. Dad's company shares? Jason. The savings account Dad built over 35 years? Jason. Mom's assets, her jewelry, her retirement fund? Jason again. My name wasn't on a single page. My mother placed her hand on the papers like she was guarding treasure. Then she delivered her masterpiece. "You won't get a single cent." She waited for me to fall apart. Jason waited for me to beg. They both waited for the old Emily, the soft one, the agreeable one, the one who always forgave, always paid the bills, always cleaned their messes. But she wasn't there anymore. I smiled. Slowly. Calmly. A smile that made my mother's confidence flicker just a little. "All right," I said, setting my fork and knife down. "Then don't expect a single cent from me either." Jason laughed under his breath, like he thought I was bluffing. I stood up, letting my chair scrape loudly against the floor. My footsteps echoed through the dining room as I walked out, coatless, but strangely warm. The moment I stepped outside, the cold air hit my face, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Free from their expectations. Free from their manipulation. Free from trying to earn love that was never really offered. But as I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Jason. "Told you Mom finally cut the dead weight. Don't bother crawling back." I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. I laughed. Because the person who would be crawling wasn't me. What I didn't know in that moment was how quickly karma works when the foundation of a family is built on favoritism, lies, and spoiled entitlement. For 3 weeks, I didn't call, didn't visit, didn't ask, didn't care. I poured myself into work, enjoyed quiet mornings, cooked dinner for myself without criticism hanging over my shoulder. For the first time, I lived without waiting for the next blow, the next insult, the next, "Why can't you be more like your brother?" And then, on a cold Tuesday morning at exactly 6:12 a.m., my phone rang. My mother never called that early. I almost let it ring out. Almost. But something inside me said, "Answer it." Her voice was trembling. Not angry. Not controlling. Not confident. But scared. "Emily, something happened." I stayed silent. It's Jason." Another pause. He was arrested." The words fell into the quiet of my room like heavy stones. Not because I was shocked, but because somewhere deep down, I had always known he would eventually face the consequences no one ever forced him to face. "We need help," she whispered. "Your help." There it was. Not an apology. Not understanding. Not regret. Just need. Always need. "His bail is high," she continued shakily. "And the lawyer, and the freeze on the company account. I don't have access right now. I don't have anything. Emily, please, we need your money." My money. My mother had cut me out of everything my father built. But now she wanted the one thing she swore I would never receive: financial responsibility. I sat up in bed, my heart oddly steady. The room felt calm. Clear. For years, I had been the fixer. The one who stepped in. The one who cleaned their disasters. The one who sacrificed. But not anymore. She waited for my answer. And in that moment, I realized something that should have been obvious all along. The nightmare wasn't mine. It was theirs. And it was finally beginning. I let my mother's shaky breathing fill the silence for a few more seconds. It was strange hearing her like that, small, unsure, almost fragile. This was the same woman who once told me feelings were a waste of time, yet now she could barely form words. "Emily, did you hear me?" she whispered. "I heard you," I said calmly. I didn't add anything else. I didn't offer comfort. I didn't ask for details. And for the first time in her life, my silence made her nervous. "We can't get him out," she continued. "Jason, he's terrified."
"I'm terrified."
"The bail is large." She waited for me to ask how much, but I didn't. I wasn't interested in the number. I was interested in the shift, how quickly power changes hands when the person in control suddenly loses everything that made them powerful. My mother cleared her throat, trying to steady herself.
"Please say something."
I leaned back against my pillows, staring at the faint morning light slipping through my blinds. "What exactly do you want from me, Mom?" I asked quietly. She swallowed hard. "We need money." "Your money." There it was, spoken plainly. My mother, who told me I wasn't worthy of a single cent. My brother, who called me dead weight. My family, who replaced me in a will before even telling me. Now wanted me to save them. "Emily," she said, "this is serious. Jason could go to prison." I closed my eyes. "I'm sure he'll figure it out." The silence that followed was heavier than her words. "You're his sister," she said sharply. "You're supposed to help." That made me laugh, quietly, bitterly. "No," I replied. "I used to help."
"Used to."
Past tense. Her breathing grew uneven. "Emily, don't do this." "Don't do what?" I asked. "Exactly what you did to me?" I could imagine her face, jaw tight, eyes wide, suddenly realizing what losing me actually meant. "You walked me into a dinner, slid a will across the table, and told me I'd get nothing," I said slowly. "You made your choice. I'm just respecting it."
"That isn't the same thing," she snapped.
"It's exactly the same thing." She inhaled sharply, ready to argue, ready to throw something cruel, but then something broke, not in me, but in her voice. "Emily, please." That word from her almost didn't feel real. "Please," she repeated. And for a moment, a tiny part of me, the girl who used to hope, who used to try, almost reacted. Almost. But then I remembered all the nights I paid her bills, the mornings I cooked for a house where no one even said thank you, the years I took my father to the hospital while they made excuses, the holidays where Jason got gifts and I got chores. All the times they needed me and never said please. All the times I needed them and heard nothing. I took a breath. "Mom, I can't help you." "You mean you won't?" she hissed. "No," I said gently. "I mean I can't. You made that very clear." Before she could answer, I ended the call. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt steady, stronger than I had ever felt. But I also knew this wasn't over. My mother didn't give up easily, not when it came to getting what she wanted. And she proved me right less than 24 hours later. The next morning, I saw her car parked in front of my apartment complex. It stood out, a shiny black SUV that screamed wealth and authority. She was leaning against the door, arms crossed, acting like I was the one being difficult. As I approached, her expression hardened. "Get in," she said, opening the passenger door. "I'm not getting in your car." "Emily, stop acting childish. We're talking." "We already talked," I said. "I just didn't give you the answer you wanted." Her jaw flexed. "I raised you better than this." I laughed again.
"Did you?"
"Because from what I remember, all you raised me to do was tolerate being ignored." She exhaled sharply, as if my refusal physically hurt her. Then she stepped closer. "Jason's hearing is in 2 days," she said. "If he doesn't get proper representation, he could lose everything."
"His job."
"His license." "His future."
"Interesting," I said.
Because 2 months ago, you made sure I had nothing to lose. Her eyes watered for a moment. Unexpected, almost unsettling. Emily, he's your brother. No, I said softly. He stopped being my brother when he watched you cut me out of the will and laughed. She winced. Really winced. For the first time, my mother seemed to realize something she hadn't considered before. Her decisions had consequences. You don't get to pick and choose when family matters. You don't get to wound someone for years and expect loyalty on demand. You don't get to exile someone and then call them back to save you. She straightened again, but her voice broke in the middle of her next sentence. If your father were alive. I cut her off. If Dad were alive, he wouldn't have let you do any of this. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. We stood there in the cold parking lot, the sun barely rising, frost clinging to the cars around us. And for the first time in her life, my mother looked lost. Emily, please. Just meet with the lawyer.
Just talk to him.
If he sees you're willing to support Jason's case, things will move faster. Mom, I said quietly, I'm not going. So, you're just going to let him fall?
I didn't hesitate.
I didn't push him. The words hit her harder than anything else I'd said. She took a step back, staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time, not as a daughter she could control, but as someone who finally understood her worth. And someone who finally understood theirs. I walked past her without another word. Her voice cracked behind me. Emily, don't do this. But I kept walking, because she still didn't understand. I wasn't doing anything to them. I was simply letting them feel what they had made me feel. And their nightmare was only getting started. The next 72 hours unfolded like watching a storm forming in the distance, slow, heavy, and impossible to ignore. My mother tried calling, then texting, then calling again. At first, her messages were sharp and cutting, the same tone she used all my life. You're being unreasonable. This is still your family. You're choosing pride over responsibility. But when none of that worked, her tone shifted. Emily, please, we don't know what to do. I can't sleep. I can't think.
Please talk to me.
Jason is scared.
I'm scared.
Every message felt like a strange reversal of everything I'd ever known. My mother, confident, controlling, always in charge, was unraveling. And I didn't enjoy it. I didn't smile at her panic. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on work, on cooking for myself, on the small routines I never got to have growing up in that house. For the first time, my days were quiet. No one yelling. No one demanding. No one reminding me of all the ways I had failed them. But life has a way of testing your boundaries just when you start to feel stable. On Friday evening, when I returned home from the office, I found someone sitting on the stairs leading up to my apartment. Jason. He wasn't supposed to be out. His bail hadn't been posted, at least according to my mother. But there he was, head low, hands rubbing the back of his neck, wearing the same arrogance hiding behind stress expression he'd had his entire life. He stood when he saw me.
Eminência.
We need to talk. I didn't slow down. No, we don't. He grabbed my arm, not hard, but enough to stop me.
Please.
Just hear me out. I pulled my arm back. Let go. He stepped back immediately. Okay.
Sorry.
Just please talk to me. I studied him for a moment. Growing up, he had always been the golden boy, athletic, charming, always the center of attention. But right now, he looked different. Smaller. Tired. The kind of tired that comes from finally facing consequences for the first time in your life. I walked past him and unlocked my door. 5 minutes. That's all. He followed me inside but didn't sit. Neither did I. Mom told you what happened, he began quietly. She told me you were arrested, I said. Not why. He swallowed. Someone at work accused me of misusing company money. I raised an eyebrow. Did you? His eyes dropped. I didn't think it was a big deal. There it was. The Carter family motto. It's not a big deal. Unless I did it. unless it affected them, unless they needed me to fix it. So, what exactly did you do? I asked. Transferred money from a project account to cover a personal expense, he muttered. It was supposed to be temporary. Temporary theft is still theft, Jason. He looked up sharply. I was going to put it back. And did you? He hesitated. Jason. He exhaled heavily.
No.
I nodded slowly. Okay. And why is that my problem? His voice cracked with frustration. Because you're my sister? I stared at him. Really stared. For the first time, he couldn't hold my gaze. When you were laughing the night Mom showed me her will, I said quietly, was I still your sister then? His face flushed. I didn't mean. You did. I cut in. You meant every bit of it. And now that things aren't convenient for you anymore, now I'm your sister again? He looked away, jaw tight, guilt finally settling on him like a weight he wasn't used to carrying. Mom made a mistake, he said weakly. She shouldn't have cut you out. I don't care about the will, I said. This isn't about money. This is about how you treated me. Both of you. He swallowed.
Please.
Just help with the lawyer. I can pay you back.
Isso.
You can't pay anyone back, I said bluntly. Your accounts are frozen. Your job suspended you. You don't even know if you're keeping your license. He flinched but didn't argue. He knew I was right. Then he said something I didn't expect. I'm sorry. The words hung in the air between us. Not exaggerated. Not dramatic. Not forced. Just real. For the first time in years, Jason actually looked like a person, not the pedestal they put him on. I'm sorry for everything, he whispered. For how I treated you. For how Mom treated you. For not speaking up. For letting things happen. I'm sorry for all of it. My throat tightened. I wasn't expecting emotion. Not from him. Not tonight. But apology didn't mean erasing consequences. Jason, I said, steadying my voice, I'm glad you're sorry. Truly. But I'm not fixing this. His eyes widened. You made choices, I continued. Adult choices. And now you're dealing with adult consequences. I'm not stepping into that courtroom to save you. I'm not signing anything. I'm not paying anything. He rubbed his face. So that's it? You're just going to watch me sink. I'm not watching, I said quietly. I'm stepping back. There's a difference. He sank onto my couch, burying his face in his hands. For a moment, he looked like a lost child. But then he whispered something that told me everything I needed to know. Mom's going to lose it if I go to jail. And there it was. Not fear for himself. Fear for her reaction. Even now, everything still revolved around her. I took a slow breath. Jason, have you ever considered that maybe Mom is the reason you're in this situation? He looked up, genuinely confused.
What?
She never taught you accountability, I said. She protected you from everything. And now, when real consequences finally show up, you don't know what to do. His lips parted, but no words came. He wasn't used to hearing the truth. This isn't punishment, I said softly. This is growth. For both of us. He sat there in silence, the reality settling into him like cold air through a cracked window. I walked to the door and opened it. Your 5 minutes are up. He nodded slowly, stood, and walked toward the exit. But before leaving, he paused. I really am sorry, Em. I know, I whispered.
He stepped out.
And I closed the door behind him. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one left standing on the outside. The night the lawsuit officially began, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by silence. No TV, no music, just the faint hum of the refrigerator and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I kept replaying my mother's words. You won't get a single cent. That sentence, once painful, had now turned into something else. Fuel. Determination. Revenge, the quiet, lawful kind. My attorney, Mr. Hartley, filed the necessary motions to freeze all remaining estate distributions until the court could evaluate whether the new will violated my late father's wishes. That meant my mother suddenly couldn't access the last portion of Dad's accounts, the part she assumed she would get automatically. For the first time, she felt what it was like to need me and get nothing. 3 days later, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. I wasn't expecting her, but the moment I opened the door, I instantly recognized that expression, half fury, half desperation. "Emily," she said sharply, brushing past me like she still owned every room she entered. "We need to talk." I didn't stop her. I didn't offer her water. I didn't ask her to sit. She stood in the center of my living room, arms crossed. "Your lawyer froze my accounts," she said, almost shaking. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that is? I was at the bank, and they practically accused me of fraud." "That's not my problem," I said calmly. Her jaw tightened. "You did this because of one argument? One dinner?" I almost laughed.
No, ma'am.
"I did this because you tried to erase me from Dad's will. And you didn't even try to hide it." For a moment, she didn't speak. She just stared at me, like she was looking at a stranger. "You're being dramatic," she finally said. "You were always too sensitive. I told you, Mark was struggling. I needed to help him." "By giving him everything?" I asked. "By cutting out your only daughter without telling her?" She flinched, a small movement, but the first real sign of guilt I'd seen on her face since this entire nightmare began. "Emily," she said softer now, "I am still your mother. And Dad was still my father." I responded. "But you didn't respect that." Her expression darkened. "Your father trusted me to handle the will." "No," I corrected her. "He trusted you to honor his wishes. And you didn't." She stepped closer. "This lawsuit will destroy our family." "There isn't a family to destroy," I whispered. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and for a brief moment I thought she might apologize, truly apologize for everything. But instead, she straightened her shoulders and said, "You're making a mistake. In the end, I always win." And then she stormed out. I felt my hands shaking, not from fear, from anger. But underneath that anger was something deeper, sadness. Because no child ever wants to reach a point where they have to fight their own parent. 2 weeks later, the court date arrived. I wore a simple navy dress, the kind my father would have chosen for me for a job interview. I needed strength, and imagining him standing beside me gave me some. Mom arrived with her attorney, wearing expensive jewelry and a stiff expression. She didn't even glance my way. Mr. Hartley leaned toward me. "Ready?" "I have to be," I said. When the judge began reviewing the documents, everything slowly started clicking into place. The date on the updated will wasn't the issue. The problem, and the turning point, was the signature. My father's signature was always neat, deliberate, slightly slanted to the left. But on that document, it was shaky, uneven. Like someone had traced it, or he had been heavily medicated. Or worse, he hadn't signed it at all. My heart thudded in my chest as the judge asked, "Mrs. Harris, can you explain why your husband's medical records indicate he was under heavy sedation the day this will was allegedly signed?" My mom stiffened. Her lawyer whispered something urgently, but she didn't respond. Her face turned pale, almost gray. The judge continued, "Additionally, handwriting experts have raised concerns about the authenticity of this signature." Then silence.
Pure, suffocating silence.
The judge turned to my mother. "Mrs. Harris, I'm giving you an opportunity to clarify these discrepancies." For the first time in my entire life, I watched my mother, the woman who always had an answer, always had control, sit frozen and speechless. Then she did something I never expected. She broke. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "Mark needed help. I didn't think anyone would question it." My breath caught. She wasn't denying it. She wasn't defending it. She was admitting it. My mother had altered, or, at the very least manipulated, my father's will. The courtroom went still. Even the judge took a moment to process her words. "Mrs. Harris," the judge said firmly, "tampering with legal documents is a serious offense." Her attorney put his head in his hands. But I didn't feel victory. Not yet. What I felt was grief. Heavy, choking grief. The judge adjourned for a short recess while they reviewed the next steps. I stood outside the courtroom, leaning against the wall, trying to catch my breath. My hands trembled. My mom sat on a bench nearby, her face buried in her hands. For the first time, she didn't look powerful. She didn't look cold. She didn't look untouchable. She looked small. She looked like someone who finally realized she'd pushed too far. When recess ended, we returned inside. The judge cleared his throat. Given the evidence, distribution of the estate will revert to the original will. Mrs. Harris, your actions will be reviewed separately by the appropriate authorities. Everything went quiet. Mom closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. And I felt a sudden, overwhelming mix of emotions: guilt, anger, relief, heartbreak. Because my revenge had worked, but it had cost something I could never get back. My family. And in that moment, standing in the courtroom where everything shattered, I realized revenge is never clean. It burns everything, even the parts you wanted to save. But it was too late. The truth was out. My father's wishes were finally honored, and justice, painful, messy, impossible justice, had arrived. When the judge finished speaking, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't even feel relieved the way I thought I would. I felt hollow. My father's will was restored, yes. His wishes were honored, yes. The estate would be divided exactly the way he intended. But I didn't walk out of that courtroom as a winner. I walked out as a daughter who had just watched the last thread between her and her mother snap completely. The hallway outside the courtroom was nearly empty. My mother stood near the far wall, staring at the floor like she couldn't process what had just happened. Her lawyer had already walked away, probably too embarrassed or frustrated to stay by her side. She looked up when she heard my footsteps. Her eyes were red, swollen, almost ghost-like. I had never seen her cry before, not once in my entire life. My mother was the type who could host a dinner party the night she got fired or give a speech after a fight. She never cracked. But she cracked today. "Emily," she whispered. I waited. For an apology. For an explanation. For anything that resembled accountability. But instead she asked, "Why did you do this to me?" I let out a breath, long, shaky. "I didn't do anything to you," I said quietly. "I did what Dad wanted. You're the one who changed things." She shook her head. "You don't understand. I was trying to protect this family. Mark needed help and you—" "There you go again," I interrupted gently. "Blaming. Deflecting. Making it everyone else's fault except yours." Her face twisted in frustration. "I'm your mother." "I know," I said. "But you stopped treating me like your daughter a long time ago." She looked like I'd slapped her. "Mom," I said softly, "you didn't just cut me out of a will. You cut me out of your life. You made decisions behind my back, and then you tried to shame me for standing up for myself." Tears spilled down her cheeks again. "I didn't think you'd take it this far." I swallowed hard. "I didn't think you would." We stared at each other. Two people who used to share a home, now sharing nothing but broken pieces. She whispered, barely audible, "I don't want to lose you." And for a moment, a small, painful moment, I wanted to hug her. To forget everything. To pretend we weren't standing here because she tried to erase me. But I couldn't ignore the truth. "You didn't lose me today," I said. "You lost me the day you put your hand on that will and told me I wouldn't get a single cent." Her lip trembled. I continued, "That wasn't tough love. That wasn't protecting Mark. That was cruelty. You wanted to hurt me because I disagreed with you." She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. So I ended it for both of us. "I hope you figure out why you did this," I said. "I hope you get help. I hope you look in the mirror and see how far you went. But I can't be part of this anymore. Not until you're ready to be honest." Her voice cracked. "Emily, please." But I had already made peace with my decision. I walked away. The next few months were quiet. I went to work, paid my bills, and started rebuilding my life. The estate settled smoothly now that the real will was back in place. Nothing extravagant. My father had been comfortable, not rich, but enough for stability. I put a portion into savings, a portion toward paying off lingering debts, and a portion into something that surprised even me:
Therapy.
not because I wanted to fix myself, but because I wanted to stop carrying the weight of what happened. I wanted to understand how a parent could betray their child, and how a child could survive it without turning bitter. Week by week, something inside me began to settle. One afternoon, about 3 months after the court ruling, I received a letter. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting instantly. My mother. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a short note. Emily, I don't know how to make things right yet, but I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you. I know I let my fears drive me into something unforgivable.
I'm sorry. I'm truly, deeply sorry.
If you ever want to talk, even if it's years from now, I'll be here. Love, Mom. A tear fell onto the paper before I could stop it. I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I folded the letter carefully, placed it in a small wooden box on my nightstand, and closed it gently. Because healing doesn't always mean going back. Sometimes it means letting someone try to become better without letting them hurt you again. People often think revenge is loud, explosive, destructive. But the most powerful revenge I've learned is quiet. It's setting boundaries. It's refusing to be manipulated. It's honoring the truth, even when it hurts. It's choosing yourself finally, fully, unapologetically. My mother once told me, "You won't get a single cent." But in the end, I didn't just get my share of the will. I got something far more valuable:
Clarity.
closure, and control over my own life. And that, more than any inheritance, was the real victory. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Revenge Files, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another real-life revenge story. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think.